moving to New York in April for an international NGO. And the reason for this is because I want to enter politics when I grow older. So, but it's going to be a long journey for me, and the best transition point for me is to enter the NGO scene and gain experience serving the public. I do hope by now you are responsible to think about who your presidents are for the upcoming 2016 elections. But I also hope you don't forget about me. When 20 years or 30 years from now. And the reason why I say is, whenever I talk about these things, even because I live in KL for the past 2 years now, and whenever I tell this to my friends, they just laugh about it because they think it's a very grand ambition. And I tell them that every ambition starts with small beginnings. And that's how I dreamed about Apprentice Asia as well. And I just really feel the reason why I joined Apprentice Asia was because I felt that the Filipino always deserved more. I hated it when I was working with GlaxoSmithKline that the Filipino was always bullied by the Malaysians and Singaporeans and Thais, thinking that we can only provide blue-collar jobs, which there's nothing wrong about it. But we are also good at providing white-collar jobs. And that's what I wanted to showcase to the rest of the world. I feel the Filipino can be served further. Not just because I want to run, but I hope who's ever going to be winning in 2016 elections, that's going to propel the country for success. Because I've traveled so much in my life, and after traveling, for example, in Europe, I really realized that the Filipino has so much to brag about. And if you realize, when I keep on wearing a Filipino flag pin, even if the producers were laughing at me because they thought I was so dramatic, I did it because it was the only thing fueling me when I wanted to quit that show. Remember, in the Apprentice Asia, there were 3 people who quit the show. And there was a point in my time where I also wanted to quit because I didn't feel I deserved the humiliation if ever I lose. But I kept on going, and I always tell this to people, whenever you want to quit, always remember the very reason why you started it. And I felt if I would quit, it would be very selfish for me because I had people back home rooting for me and expecting me to win it for them, not just for myself. So there.
Any questions? There we have one.
Who do you think should people vote for in 2016?
Nice.
I have two answers for that. From a functional perspective, from a logistical perspective, I'd like to believe that the current administration is okay. And if only that same platforms can be continued by someone who's aligned with the same platforms, i.e. Mar Rojas, and if he can do it, then I would go for him. However, number 2, I also believe that another candidate who has the balls, all right, and who's very, very stronghold about it, I like that kind of attitude. And if only that kind of attitude is fueled into Mar Rojas, because I am concerned on how he can be easily bullied as well when he becomes the president. I hope he gets that. But between Duterte and Mar Rojas, I will still vote for Rojas today.
Interesting. Yes, ma'am. Question.
Jonathan, you mentioned that we should know when to say no to opportunities, but opportunities also come with people, with relationships, and we want to build relationships in order to advance in our career. So, how do you not burn bridges with the people that come with the opportunities that you think you need to say no to, so that you'd still be in good terms with them?
Okay, very good question. One of the reasons why, and when I left, when I resigned, and I had a heart-to-heart talk with Tony about this, and he said, did you enjoy AirAsia during your 2 years of stay? And I told him I enjoyed the earnings, but I didn't enjoy some of the people. And that's partially one of the reasons why I felt I had to leave, because I deserved something better. And I would always tell this to people, when you're in conflict with people at work, all right? I always believe that constructive engagement is the #1 thing you have to believe. The idea that no one in this world wants to look bad, that no one in this world wants to hurt other people's feelings, that some people may be enduring a certain battle you don't know about, and therefore you have to put yourselves into their shoes. I had this one girl, she's a Malaysian girl, and I really, really hated her. Like, there was a chapter about her in my book that fueled my anger. There was a point in my life when I realized there must be a reason why she's acting like. So, just to give you a background, this girl wouldn't post my advertisements on Facebook of AirAsia. Because in AirAsia or any other company, you have to line up. There are different products, they post seat sale, they post food, etc. I have to queue, and I have to ask permission, can you please expose my product? And she doesn't want. And I don't know why, maybe because she's personally mad at me. And so, for me, I had to understand why. And so in this case, I would look at her Instagram account, and I would understand the kind of family or upbringing she has, and she would always post photos of her grandma, which makes me believe that this person must still be a good person in the end. That there is goodness in her heart. And there must be another reason why she's giving me a hard time. And apparently, you know, when we didn't work anymore, because I was moved to a different department, I realized that she was having a terrible boss as well. And she was simply channeling it to the other people she was working with. So for me, that's always been principle in life, to seek first for you to be understood, and for you to understand at the end of the day. And burning bridges is never, for me, an option, unless you have other things to pursue in life. If you think that there's a gold mine behind that person, always find a genuine reason to like that person, and build through that, and build a relationship through that.
I think we have some time for more questions. Others? Yes, sir. In the back.
I have a final question. If you were part of the participation system, among the other 11 contestants, who would you think is going to win? The way you see them play on the whole 11 contestants?
I would think Alex. I actually thought Alex was my other final competitor, for reasons that he's a very tough sales guy. He wanted to prove because he wasn't Asian. So I saw that grit in him, and we kept on joking, Alex, that you are the token expat guy who was placed in the show just to get expat audiences. And I even joked him like, you can't win Apprentice Asia because you're not Asian. So, which, you know, he always gets pissed off, but he really did well and he wanted to prove. And I felt that fueled him every episode. I'd like to believe that he was that contestant who volunteered as many times as he can. Just for him to show that. And just to give you an idea about this, like, I always joke him about this. In the final episode, we were filming it, Alex dragged me to the kitchen. He said, you know what, Jonathan, I don't think you deserve to be in the final two because you did not volunteer many times as a leader. You were scared to step up because if you lose a project manager, which I only did in episode 6, you think you'd be taken out. And that's when I told him, this is what I hate about Generation Y leaders like us. Because Alex and I are of the same age. And I told him, those moments when I felt that someone else was willing to do the job, or is passionate to do the job, you take a step back and you let someone else shine. Because the real role of a leader is to make more leaders out of themselves. And that once you become a leader, it's no longer about you, but the people that you serve. And I told him, even if you don't volunteer as a project manager, Tony will still see you shine. You can always be a good deputy, or someone who easily follows the instructions of your project manager. But for him, his perspective was, you know, be the popular guy in class, always be the one to raise your hand. And I felt this a very traditional Generation Y thinking because that's how we were trained in universities. That the attention always goes to us. And so I only tell people, and this is why one of my advocacies is for Generation Y, as early as you are, start becoming emotionally mature. Because that's the reason why you can be an individual executioner. You send the fastest amount of emails, you do the best reports. But once you start managing people, you fail. And that's why a lot of our generation don't get promoted. We do well individually, but once we start managing a team, we fail. And that's what people realize that's required of being promoted. And that for me is just, what's lacking, and I hope can be further improved.
Okay, one last question, and then you can take your turn during the book signing and photo op. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm just wondering, given that you said that some people really work well individually, but find it hard to work with others,
Yep.
it kind of hit at me that maybe it's easier for extroverted people to climb up the corporate ladder better than the introverts. So how do you think we can overcome that if ever we unfortunately fall under?
That's a very Harvard Business Review had this cover article 2 months ago. The idea, why is it that introverts can climb up easily in the ladder? And what I really believe, and I'm going to be biased because I'm an extrovert, right? I love holding the microphone, right? And for me, I always tell people that being introvert doesn't mean that you cannot channel energy by being surrounded by others. That's not true. Being introverted means that you can control your emotions and that you don't necessarily have to share it with other people. And for me, being introverted, especially when you're Gen Y, is actually an advantage. Because that's the time when you can control your emotions, which are usually very immature, when you think that the world and the universe revolves around you. I'm going to give an example about this. When I was with GSK and I was working with Farah as well, I was that very competitive guy who got promoted every year. And when I was 25 years old, when I had 2 brand managers reporting to me, that was the first year of my life that I didn't get promoted at all. And I asked my boss, Didif, and I told her, you asked me, number 1, number 2, number 3, why isn't my name in that email of promotions? And she said, remember, Jonathan, that time when you did a brilliant presentation to the CEO and you had 2 brand managers reporting to you. And I asked you out for a dinner celebration because you did so well. And I asked you to tag along anyone that you want, but you went alone. And you even dared to ask me, should I have brought someone else? And that's the reason why I'm not promoting you, because you think it's all about you. And you are insecure to share the limelight. I'd like to believe, and again, science would tell us, more introverted people are likely to share their feelings when they feel that they have to be shared, because it's all about being part of the team, rather than being because you are part of the limelight. Which, again, I'll be biased, because extroverted people feel that in order for them to succeed, people's attention must be directed towards them. Rather than introverted people wherein being silent, you can get things done even when you're silent, or even when you don't express your feelings. So there.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. At this point, we would like to call on some